Greetings, Nick with Sweetwater here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the new members of the highly acclaimed Mesa Boogie family of rectifier amps, this 100-watt brute behind me, the Badlander, and I'm going to be doing so with my very good pal Don Carr over here, so without further ado, let's hear the sucker, shall we? What you just heard was the Badlander Rectifier 100, a 2-channel, 100-watt tube head with 2 foot-switchable channels, a series effects loop, a built-in CabClone IR DI section, and much, much more. Its 2 independent channels are identical, and each one has its own controls for gain, treble, middle, bass, presence, and master. Each one also has 3 modes to choose from: clean, crunch, and crush. My intro featured channel 1 on the crunch setting for rhythm and channel 2 for my lead, set to crush of course. I also recorded a rhythm backing track using the amp's DI from the CabClone straight into Studio One via my Apollo Twin. The IR I used was the Recto standard 4x12 for the company's trademark low-end oomph. But wait for it, there's a lot more to talk about on the front panel, and to do that I'm handing over to this chap over here, Mr. Don Carr. Hurrah!
Hey, thanks, Nick. So, to further fine-tune the sound and feel of the Badlander, the folks at Mesa included these 2 important but not so obvious control options. Let's start with the multi-watt switch, which affects the power section of the amp. Now, it allows you to choose from 100 watts, which is full power, 50 watts, half power, or 20 watts, which is triode wiring. It's a nice option because it lets you decide how you want to engage the power section of the amp. So reducing the wattage reduces not only the power section's output level, but the headroom as well, so you can get more harmonic complexity, depth, and a different layer of overdrive characteristics. So for example, if you want your sounds to be bold and tight, use the 100-watt setting. Or if you want to pummel the power section at a reasonable output level, use the 20-watt setting and crank the master volume. It really extends the amp's versatility and sonic options. To even further tweak the amp sound and especially the feel, try the bold Variax Switch. Bold setting is standard operation, and the Variac side reduces the voltage to about 93 volts depending on the incoming line voltage. Now this results in a saggier feel that you'll really notice on pick attack, also a slightly different EQ curve.
Absolutely, that's a great feature, and as Don said, the feel changes. And if you're wondering, by the way, about our dress coordination, our wardrobe sense, if you will, it's Mitch Gallagher's fault. He sent us an email and said, hey guys, dress the same. So Mitch Gallagher's fault. Blame him. Put it in the comments. Anyway, talking about the Variax Switch, as Don just mentioned, it drops the amp's voltage to about 93 volts, which as it happens is right around the voltage that the late great Edward Van Halen used when creating his legendary Brown sound in the late 70s and 80s. Let's ask our good friends over at Mesa exactly what this magical lower voltage setting does to both the sound and feel of the amp, and more importantly, how it does it. To do this, we're going to quiz two R&D mavens over at Mesa, Doug West and John Marshall. Gentlemen, take it away. Please explain the Variax Switch.
Hey Nick, thanks for your question about the Variac feature on the Badlander. The Variac is actually a feature that's been around since the original two-channel dual rectifier, although at that time we called it spongy. And since then we've used it on several other Mesa Boogie models, including the Mark V, in which we called it Tweed, and the other rectifier models, the Roadster and the Road King. What it does essentially is it alters the input side of the power transformer and essentially lowers the voltage across the whole amplifier. Kind of the same thing that a Variac does. In terms of the tone and feel, tone-wise, it kind of scoops the mid-range a little bit, takes a little bit of the edge off the top end, and kind of adds a little bit of upper highs in there. And in terms of the feel, just gives it an overall softer feel, takes out some of the aggressiveness.
So at first glance, the Variac is a way to reduce the voltage across the entire amplifier. Now, of course, the preamp and the power amp treat that a little differently, but together they create a whole different feel. What's not so apparent at first glance is the fact that it's a way to have two different personalities in the same amplifier without changing anything else. So in the full power position, you have a real tight attack, better tracking low end, and a more aggressive top end, along with more percussion in the mids as well. In the Variac position, you have a saggier feel, a softer attack, a little scoop in the mids, and just a different top end that's a little sweeter. So it's a really nice way to have two personalities out of the same amplifier.
And talking of all things tonal, when the rectifiers first exploded on the scene in the early 90s and instantly became the go-to amp for countless hard rock and metal players, the output tube of choice was the 6L6. The Badlander, however, boasts a quartet of EL34s, a power tube many feel synonymous with the British rock sound, in particular ones that share John's last name, Marshall. Mesa's reason for going with the EL34s in the Badlander? Let's ask him. John and Doug, over to you again, chaps.
So when we were looking to do a new face of the rectifier, right out the gate, we chose EL34s because we knew that they had characteristics that really leaned towards all the things we wanted to achieve. A little bit tighter low end, a little more percussive mids, and a different top end that just had a different flavor from the first rectifier. So it was a choice made early on, and we never looked back.
When it came time to expand the dual rectifier line, some of the things we considered were some of the comments that we'd had over the years from players, notably wanting to pull up the low end. There's a lot of sub-low in the dual rec. But what we didn't want to do is just pull up the low end, box it up, and make a new rectifier. We wanted to expand into something where we'd never been before, which, including a tucked up low end, was more percussive mid-range, harder hitting, really aggressive sounding. All of which are features that you would probably find in some of your favorite EL34 based amps. So before we even started designing the amp, the power tube choice had already been made. It was just a no-brainer.
Oh, and just so you know, for you 6L6 fanatics out there, fret not, the Badlander does have a bias switch on its rear panel, so if you want that fat, smooth 6L6 sound, you can easily make the switch, thanks to that switch. And while we're on the subject of the rear panel, once again, back to my friend Don.
All right, so next to the bias switch is a buffered effects loop, a Mesa Boogie tried and true standard. Their tube-driven effects loops work flawlessly with their amps and are a great addition. On the other side of the panel, there's the speaker outputs, 2 4-ohm and 1 8-ohm. According to Mesa, the Badlander is pretty forgiving with impedance mismatches, so regardless of your speaker setup, you can get a good performance from the amp. If nothing is plugged into the speaker jacks, the internal reactive load is engaged. Which brings us to the most unique feature on the Badlander, the CabClone IR DI. So the balanced XLR out allows you to connect to a console or interface with the sound of a speaker cabinet IR. And because of the internal reactive load, you can use this feature with or without a speaker cabinet. Now we're using a speaker cabinet as a monitor, but the sound you're hearing is from the CabClone IR. There are 8 IRs available per channel on board the amp, and by connecting your computer to the USB port, you can swap any of those for any IRs of your choosing. Each channel has its own rotary knob for assigning speaker cabinet IRs and an overall level control for both channels. There's also a headphone out, which makes this a pretty ridiculous practice rig, right, Nick?
Yep, excellent actually. Great for recording.
Yeah, indeed.
Incidentally, if you want to learn more about the CabClone IR and the reactive dummy load, check out our video on the standalone unit, as once again, Doug and John from Mesa grace us with their knowledge and wisdom. Right, now we've covered all of the amp's many features, let's listen to a few of the many sounds the Badlander is capable of. You've already suffered through my primitive approach to rhythm and lead playing, so let's go to a real player and see how this amp sings. Don, take it away. As you've just heard, even though the Badlander is definitely an aggressive sounding beast capable of some monstrously heavy and punchy percussive tones, it's also capable of some wonderful clean and lower gain sounds too. This makes the amp perfect for any style, not just metal. You can play country, pop, blues and classic rock. And don't forget the built-in Cab IR DI and the reactive load, which means you can record the head without having to plug in a cabinet. Late at night with your neighbors, that's a nice thing. And there you have it, folks, the 100-watt Mesa Badlander Rectifier head. And just so you know, it's also available as a 50-watt head, a 50-watt 1x12 combo, and there's also rack mount versions of the 50-watt and 100-watt heads. Very cool. For more information, please go to our website, or better still, call your Sweetwater sales engineer and he or she will be only too happy to guide you through the many features of this wonderful amp. That said, I'm out and so is Don. Please play us out, my friend.
You got it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Click here for more videos like this, or start at sweetwater.com for all your music instrument and pro audio needs.